Today on Locked On Canadiens, the Habs were not able to rewrite the narrative in Minnesota, but my co host has been doing some detective work and we found a scandalous narrative of our own.
You are Locked On Canadiens, your daily podcast on the Montreal Canadiens, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hi there, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Locked On Canadiens. We want to thank you all for making us your first listen of the day. As you know, we're free and available wherever you get your podcasts, as well as on YouTube, as part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the #1 sports podcast network. My name is Laura Saba, also known as the Active Stick, and I'm joined, as always, by my wonderful co-host, Ian Boisvert, also known as Maybe It's Ian. You might know him from The Build. I know him as the guy who does the math and now the detective work on this show. Ian, how are you doing on this less cold than usual Monday evening?
It's still freezing where I'm at. So whatever cold you guys had up north is now down with us. Look, I feel like I'm mad enough where I could melt all the snow in my front yard.
Yeah.
I have not felt this way after a game since the Edmonton game. And just me saying since the Edmonton game, everyone knows what I'm talking about. And there's a through line between this one and that one, and we'll get into that later in the show.
Yeah, so first in the first segment, we're obviously going to talk about the game that Canadiens just played against the Wild. In our second segment, we're going to talk about what Ian was talking about. He did a little bit of a deep dive, and we found something. And obviously, the Montreal Canadiens are not happy with the way that game transpired. And then finally, in our final segment, the Amazon the Prime Monday Night Hockey broadcast did a little bit of a feature on Martin St. Louis, and we thought it's a good time to kind of revisit Martin St. Louis as a coach and talk about what makes him different than other coaches. I think sometimes people take him for granted or maybe don't give him the credit that he's due. But first, let's get into that game. The Habs did not make it easy on themselves by allowing a goal so early in the game, but overall, I did think Jakub Dobes played incredibly well in this game. I believe he's in his last 10 starts. He has not lost in regulation, so he's won 8 and he's lost 2 in overtime. He played really well. We have a lot to say about Kirby Dach playing really well. There were a lot of bright spots for the Habs, but there were also some negatives as well.
Yeah, look, I think, the focus has been on goaltending for a while now. Dobes obviously lets in that first one. That is a bit of a gift, right? It's a weird looking 2-on-2 rush. A shot comes in. It's the first time he's seen a puck since warm up, and it just beats him. It's a puck that can't beat a goalie in this league. But give Dobes credit. He battled. He looked more confident and comfortable as the game went on. It's a rare loss this season where we're not pointing at the goaltending and going, they were the problem in this one. Especially I mentioned the Edmonton game from earlier where the officiating was bad. In that one, you could also go, Sam, you gave up 6, dog. Like that can't happen either. So, this one, they kept it close. Look, Montreal's played 2 games against this Minnesota Wild team now, who are a very good team, who are one of the best teams in the National Hockey League. And both of them were very close. The Canadiens effectively win the season series against them on a points perspective. The Wild get 2 points. The Canadiens have 3 because they won the first one in regulation and they pick up a point in the second one. Those are measuring stick games. I think the non-officiating aspect that I take away from this, John Hines was designed in a lab to play a style of hockey, to coach a style of hockey that is incredibly effective, but makes everyone who watches it want to pull their hair out. And there's no greater evidence. I know a lot of people would be like, oh, that's just salty Habs fans. Just hear me out. The first 40 minutes of this game are low event, low interest, low everything hockey. The Canadiens take the lead 12 seconds into the third period, and the game opens up immediately because the Wild go, oh yeah, we actually have to score to play this game. And then they get that goal, and then immediately it gets locked down again. They have the most overtime games this season, the Minnesota Wild, and it's obvious why. They're playing to win every game by 1 goal. And that's a way you can win hockey games. I think you rely on goaltending a lot, which is why it's been great that Wallstedt's been great there, and Gustafsson's been great there. But, it's not something that I think is super sustainable for this team. I'm glad we're done seeing John Hines for the rest of the season. This is a through line in his career. When he coached New Jersey was like that. When he coached Nashville was like that. Every team he's coached has been this way, And it's kind of crazy that he hasn't adjusted considering he's been fired like 4 times. He's the same coach everywhere he goes.
Just so you know, we're seeing him again in the Olympics. We're not going to be free of him.
No,
He
we're
won't
not
be the
going to.
head coach.
The only time Canada will see the US is in the medal rounds, and I don't think US is getting there. So we won't see him.
Well, it will serve them right for not taking Lane Hudson and Cole Caulfield. We're not going to be over that. I don't think I feel like the players will get over that before we here on this podcast get over that.
No reason to get over it.
Let's talk a little bit about the defense. I did feel like there were a few missteps, a few mishaps and missteps.
Yeah, I want to target the tying goal from Faber because it's sort of a weird looking rush for the Wild where it seems like it kind of looked like a football line of scrimmage in that there was just guys lined up all the way up and down the blue line. And then it was sort of a running play where, the running back would take it right up the middle. And Matheson goes for a hit on, I believe, Marcus Johansson. And he misses the hit. And even if he made the hit, it wasn't going to do anything. Johansson was going to play the puck off to Faber, who he left open because he decided to step up for a hit at the blue line. I wouldn't go far as to say it was a tragic Mike game, but it was one of the games from Matheson where I didn't love his playmaking ability. I didn't love the choices he was making throughout this game. And I didn't really love Guhle much either with the puck. With the puck, it seemed like he was questioning every decision he was going to make. And when you have to move the puck out to avoid a forecheck, you don't have the luxury to be able to do that. So I'm curious what's going to happen there. The last thing I want to say, the Canadiens need a 6th defenseman because right now it's not Arber Xhekaj. He played, I believe, .551 in all situations. Yikes.
Yeah.
Like that's not a defenseman you can trust in this game, in any game. I'm really curious to see what the Canadiens look like on the other side of the Olympic break, because I really wonder if Arber Xhekaj's roster or lineup spot is safe.
I do too. I have been wondering though lately if it's him or if it's the deployment or the instructions. I don't know. I feel like the potential is too tantalizing to just rule him out of the lineup entirely. And I feel like he is making it harder on himself. He's making this conversation for the Canadiens to be easier. Does he belong on this team easier? I do feel like there's a place up for him on this team, but he has to fulfill certain criteria and it has to work out a certain way. And that's a very narrow way. It's a very narrow journey for him.
Yeah.
And he can't be stepping off that path.
Yeah. It's like, I think I brought this phrase into our podcast lexicon when we talked about the three-headed goalie monster the last year and the goaltending at the beginning of this year, where that the range of potential outcomes for success or not success was wide. The range of potential outcomes in which Arber Xhekaj is a successful defenseman is very narrow, right? It's he has to play within himself, but also still play a role that is fitting of the kind of player he is, which is I'm going to mess you up. And we're not seeing either of those things from him.
Yeah.
I go back to the Buffalo game, right? Like Caden Guhle takes a shot high and he doesn't react until the game is over. And I know a lot of people gave me, some noise in the comments about how I was wrong there. But like, if he's not doing that, what is he doing? And again, I don't mean to do this whole like the Arber Xhekaj is the reason he barely played. He can't be the reason they lost this game.
Yeah.
But like, they need more out of that pair so that they're not riding their top guys 30 minutes a night, like we saw the Wild have to do with Quinn Hughes in this one, which, by the way, was part of the reason the Canadiens were allowed to stay in this game. 2 of the Canadiens' goals were scored off of Canadiens players exploiting Quinn Hughes at the end of his shift.
Yes.
Brendan Gallagher toe-dragged Quinn Hughes into the shadow realm in the first period. He was at the end of his shift, gassed. The same thing, the Kapanen. He chips in and he goes on a forecheck, and by how slow Hughes was moving, it looked like Kapanen was skating at light speed. Like it didn't make any sense that was happening. So the fact, like, that's even when the Canadiens should look at that as a cautionary tale for how they play Hudson and how they play Matheson. You can't do that all the time because guys will take advantage of that at some point.
Yes, agreed. All right, there are a couple of good things we do want to say. It's going to spill over into the beginning of our next segment, which is mostly going to be taken over by what the Canadians felt about that officiating and something that Ian discovered. And that's coming up in just one moment here on Locked On Canadians. This episode is brought to you by Indeed. If you've ever hired someone who looked good on paper but wasn't the right fit, you know how important that is. When you want candidates who truly match what you're looking for, trust Indeed sponsored jobs. Hiring? Indeed is all you need. Stop struggling to get your job post seen on other sites. Indeed sponsored jobs put your post at the top of the page and help you reach the right candidates faster. If I needed to hire someone for this show, I'd go straight to Indeed and be very specific about what I need. Real experience, not just a resume buzzword. Instead of struggling to get your job post seen, Indeed sponsored jobs helps your listing stand out and reach quality candidates faster. Spend more time interviewing candidates who check all your boxes with less stress, less time, and more results using Indeed sponsored jobs. Listeners of this show get a $75 sponsored job credit to help give your job the premium placement it deserves at Indeed.com/lockedon. Just go to Indeed.com/lockedon right now and support the show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Thank you all for making a Locked On Canadiens your first listen today, and thank you for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network. And if you haven't already, go check out our new Everydayer Club. It comes with access to an ad-free audio feed for Locked On Canadiens, compatible with Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and every other major podcast app. And it also includes an invite to the members-only Locked On Everydayer Club Discord server, which includes a group chat just for listeners of this show. Ian's already in there. I'm in there too, but Ian understands Discord. He's teaching me Discord so that I can hang out with you guys in there. So go to lockedoncanadians.supercast.com or tap the link in the show notes to learn more. All right. I wanted to say some good things. I wanted to talk about Kirby Dach. I wanted to talk about Arber Xhekaj, and I wanted to talk about Ivan Demidov. They had great games, fantastic games. Lane Hudson too, quietly, but really, really good games. I really felt for Philippe Danault because I thought he was having a good game, and then he took a penalty that was very unfortunate. Felt very bad about that. We'll get into that in just a second.
Sure.
But let's talk about Kirby Dach.
Yeah, look, it's another game where he's imposing his force, imposing his will in the offensive zone in the forecheck. He's driving the net. He's a pain below the goal line. Like, these are all the things that he needs to do to be successful. That's why after the Buffalo game, when he scored, we got very excited because the way that he scored was replicable, right? Like, he can do that again. And here he is again, right? He's going to the net. He didn't score in the Buffalo game. He created an assist. I'm now remembering it. But
Yes.
he goes to the net. And he has a stick down. And he needs to recognize that the other guys on the ice are going to find him, or he's going to get them the puck to find each other. That's how this is going to work. So bravo, another really strong night from him. And I thought the Kapanen line, I thought they were effective in this game on the forecheck. Demidov down low was able to win some pucks and keep offensive shifts going. I thought Kapanen was especially effective of that. Slavkovsky a quieter night, but I think he was still strong. I think that line had a good night. And of course, the Hudson play to set up Demidov to tie the game at 2 in the final minute. They scored. If you go back to the last game against Minnesota, Montreal scored a goal in the final minute of a period 3 periods in a row. So pretty odd stat for that to be happening. But look, I think generally speaking, again, a really strong night. It's a close game. You're going to play close games against other good teams. The issue here is that it felt like it was taken away from him, which I figure we're going to get into in a minute here.
Yeah, we're going to get into it right now, actually. So tough one. And I know there were quite a few things, and I know we talk about officiating on the show a lot, but there's been a common thread within a couple of games that we have noticed, and it is a specific person, it's a specific occurrence. So Ian, do you want to get into it?
Yeah, this is our friend Z on Blue Sky had this as well. There's a through line here between the Edmonton game, in which the Canadiens got completely jobbed by officiating, and this one, and that's a gentleman by the name of Chris Schlenker, who was a referee in both of those games. I just firmly believe that this is not an NHL caliber official, and thank goodness for the Amazon broadcast, because You could hear everything he was saying to these players all night. There is a play, Jake Evans is going in on a rush. He's hooked from the blue line. He's got a guy water skiing off of him from the time he reaches the blue line until the time where the guy decides, I'm done, and throws him into the end boards. And the Canadians are yelling at him, going, what are you watching? What's going on? And you can hear him yell over and over again. Chris Schlenker, you can hear him yell, who do you want called for that? As if to say, like, what are you talking about? That's not a penalty. Like, that's not a thing that you can, reasonably expect. And quite honestly, like, he's antagonizing players. This is the same referee who got upset when Josh Anderson showed him up in Edmonton. This is the same guy where you can't tap your stick on the ice unless you're David Pastrnak in overtime in the outdoor game on Sunday and you tap your stick at the referee and it's fine. So the play that Jake Evans play is one that is inexcusable. You have to call a penalty. The other, and that's an offensive zone. He's driving to the net. He's about to get a scoring opportunity and you pull him down. The second is Demidov. He makes a move to get around a defender. He's all alone in the slot. He's about to get a grade A scoring chance and his stick gets slashed in half. Both of those plays, the referees lose me with the whole benefit of the doubt of, well, it's a tough job. They can't see everything. If you're not watching the play develop in the highest danger spot on the ice, you ought to not have that job. That job's too hard for you. Go do something else. Like, I don't know how that, like, I don't understand that. And then, of course, the game is decided. The penalty on Phil Deneau, by the way, I have no problem with that penalty. It's a penalty he has to take in that moment. Yeah. Because if he doesn't, Kirill Kaprizov is going to score, right? Yeah. My problem is that Phil Deneau was on to take the faceoff. He lost it and never found a way to get off.
Yeah.
That was the real challenge there. But I don't have a problem with that. What I have a problem with is that the Canadians are actually really effectively killing that penalty, and the Wild break back in, and the only reason they're able to get back in the zone is because Joel Eriksson Ek blatantly interferes with Nick Suzuki at the blue line and knocks him over. A play that we have against this Wild team, have seen that called, and there was no contact.
Yeah.
Flip it the other way. The Lane Hudson play where he gets called for a trip on the Wild was the Canadians were on the power play and were going into the zone, and they called it on a play where he wasn't within 3 feet of the guy.
Yeah.
But they automatically, like, there's actual physical contact that pulls a guy down, and they don't call. It's not I missed it. It's I don't want to call it. And to me, like, those three examples are the Canadians got one power play in this game. One. Yeah. Like, it wasn't a good power play either, but like, these were game deciding plays that the officials completely bottled. Yeah. So, like, I'm going to be scouting the refs who always post who officiates each game. And every time I see Chris Schlenker's name, I'm going to lose my mind. The Canadians, like, there's a 24-hour cool off period where they have to cool off and then they can call the league. And they should be calling Gary every day until Chris Schlenker isn't allowed within 20 miles of Montreal. Like, I just genuinely, like, there's two examples of this guy completely bottling games for them. Yeah. And there should be enough might from one of the most storied franchises in the sport to say, hey, keep this gremlin away from us. Like, we want nothing to do with this.
I think it's also, like, generally, like, there is a lot of discussion on the ice. Like, there is a lot of, like, you argue your case, you plead your case, and the ref tells you to go back to your bench or keep it down or quiet down or whatever. Next time I'm calling that kind of thing. But the antagonistic way in which he responded to not doing his own job, like, that's the part where I draw the line, right? There's always going to be, like, and I'm sure hockey players are really annoying. Like, I don't want to be the one in charge of those games, right?
I'm sure baseball players are really annoying. Those guys get to get up and scream in that guy's face, and then he gets tossed and they're all fine. Like, I don't want to hear it that these guys, their job is hard. Every job is hard. And if you don't do it right, you lose it. I don't understand why we've carved out this place in our mind for, well, it's really difficult. So they're allowed to just be jerks to guys on the ice, and you're just supposed to sit there and take it, or we don't get calls. Like, Marty was asked after the game, what do you expect from NHL officiating? And he said, more. I expect more.
Yeah, Kirby Dach said something veiled. Nick Suzuki said something veiled. Like, this is not,
it's not a secret. Like, and again, it's not they hate your team. It's not. It's they're not trained to do their job in a way that makes for a good product.
Yeah,
they're not.
The demand is not a good product.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
NHL likes this. This is why they always say we have the best officials in the world. No, you don't. You have the only suckers who are dumb enough to call this sport. That's who you have. And this sport and every other sport in reality has an officiating crisis in that it's not feasible to bring more guys into this system, and nobody wants to be referees. Well, like in a world where like none of these guys have accountability, if you're a good referee, why am I being brought down by Chris Schlenker? Like all we're talking about now is this guy that none of us should be talking about.
Exactly. And I do want to make it clear, like, this is not to take away from Minnesota. The Minnesota Wild are a fantastic hockey team with superstars on it, right? Kirill Kaprizov, Quinn Hughes. These are some of the best players playing today, right?
It's a game between two really good teams that was
Yeah.
on a razor's edge that was
Yes.
decided by complete nonsense. Just
Exactly.
complete nonsense.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. We're going to move away from that and go back to happy things. Marty makes us happy. We're going to talk about him a little bit more in just a moment. All right, let's talk about Marty. So this is like blatantly, I'm stealing this off of Prime Monday Night Hockey because there was a very, very short interview with Marty, but I feel like we'd seen clips of it on like the socials. It was talking about his like the way he is and the difference between coaching when he came into the league and coaching now. And I want to say something, and I want to say something, and I want to make it really clear that if you think that old school coaching was the way to go, maybe it worked at the time, it does not work now. And if you think that being empathetic and having a more democratic way of coaching your team is not good, like, you know, like they suffered back in the past and everyone should just suck it up and be mistreated by their coach. No, just because it worked then does not mean it was a good thing. Coaches bullying you, demeaning you, being really, really like rigid and really, really like bullying is the word that comes up a lot, right? Coaches being that way, being tough, whatever it is, just because it worked does not mean that that's the way it should always have been. So, you know, it's not that players today are soft and need to be coddled and blah, blah, blah. Because every time I bring something like this up, some people get mad. They're like, oh, you know, players back in the day, they didn't need any of this. Players back in the day also used to smoke cigarettes before games. They used to eat a hamburger, and now all of them have like these like macrobiotic crazy diets that I don't even want to think about. Nathan McKinnon is scared of carbs. Like, things are different now, and you need to evolve with the times. And just because tough coaches were the order of the day does not mean that was the right way to do it. It worked, but that was the only way they knew how, right? Anyways, let's go back to Marty then.
I would just add like they used to do bloodletting too. Like that worked for the time, and then we determined that actually that wasn't a really effective way of doing anything.
No.
Except losing a lot of blood in a really fast period of time.
And potentially getting infected.
Sure. Yeah. Look, I think it's a good point with Marty to focus on this because, you know, when the Canadiens hired him, one of the first things they said was that his emotional intelligence is what set him apart and what made him, you know, a guy that they wanted to bring into that locker room. You got to think about it. Like that must have been yes, he's a Hall of Famer. Yes, he's a Stanley Cup champion. Yes, he's an Olympic gold medalist. He's won a Hart Trophy. He's won everything you can win. That plays into it as well. But like that doesn't immediately make you a good coach. Something that like he had been doing where I live in Connecticut, like coaching 14-year-olds. Like that was his experience. So for them to decide we're going to bring you in as the head coach of the Montreal Canadiens, that emotional intelligence must have paved the way pretty hard. So like when Prime Monday Night Hockey does a segment about him in that respect, that's the angle they're taking because it's the angle that brought him here. Yes, his accolades are everything, but like you listen to him talk and you see how he deals with these guys and talks to his players, and you really understand that it seems silly, but like all of the accolades are secondary to the kind of person he wants to be.
Yeah. Yeah. And if you missed it or if you don't have Prime, there were a couple of things that he said that really stood out. And this is all paraphrasing. This is not direct quotes. One of the things that he said that he was really open to players discussing things with him. He doesn't tell them what to do. They all get convinced, right? Like everybody has to be convinced and buy in. He said
Sure.
that all the players are very different from each other, but they all have a common I think it was a common understanding. They're all like they understand their part, right? So he's not trying to kill anyone's individuality, which is something that does not happen in hockey. Generally, in hockey, that you have to kind of suppress your personality and just sort of be part of like this cookie cutter room. And he's not like that. And his idea is that you can be yourself. We just have to come together in the right way. And the other
Yeah.
is that if a player does not, if a player wants to make suggestions or does not agree with Marty's ideas, like that person is welcome to like go talk to Marty. You just have to be able to back it up. Like if you think you're better off doing something that you thought of instead of Marty, like you better be able to show it on the ice. But he's going to listen to you. He's going to hear you out,
Yeah.
and it's going to be collective, right? And there were like they showed some clips of him like kind of talking to Cole Caulfield about like what Nick needs and Slav needs or whatever it was. Like I just thought it was really it felt like a really collaborative effort, right?
Yeah. I mean, there's only so much of it we can see on a nightly basis, but like one of the areas where it's obvious that this is how things work for the Canadians is late in a game, they call timeout to draw up a play. Marty is like not doing a lot of the talking. He's got the whiteboard and he's like drawing things out, but it's mostly the players. He sort of puts an idea in front of them to interact with, which is a really interesting way to make his players feel like they have agency in that selection, right? Like it's a lot like, okay, I go back, I think about this play a lot, and it was when Marty wasn't even here. At least I don't think he was here yet. It was when Alex Burrows used to draw up the plays when they were down a guy and they were trying to tie it late. There was a game against the Flyers where they ended up scoring late and tying it, and then I think they won it in overtime, but they tied it on a goal that they scored that wasn't the play that Burrows drew up. And I always used to joke about it because Burrows would draw up that play and they would never score. Never. It would never happen. And then one time after the game when they're like, yeah, we did something else. Like probably the play blew up and they had to do something. But the second they had to like think critically and think in the moment, they trusted their brains and they trusted the skills that got them there and they scored a goal. And I think Marty is putting them in, especially because in those moments, it is the stars, right? It's Suzuki, it's Caulfield, it's Slafkovsky, it's Hudson, it's Demidov. Like it's all these guys that are on the ice. It's more helpful for them to, I think, problem solve themselves because there are moments where they're going to be on the ice and they're not going to have the ability to call a timeout and have their head coach help them out.
Yeah.
So he's building, he's exercising a muscle in their brain that is allowing them to be able to go back out there the next time without him and say, hey, this worked last time. Hey, my idea didn't work last time. Let's do something else. Like, I think just from everybody has a manager sort of perspective, this is the kind of manager you want to work for, right?
Yeah. In manager speak, he's empowering them. I love that word,
correct.
empowering. He's empowering them to make their own decisions.
Yeah. And it'll be interesting too, like as this team's like as their expectations change for themselves and as the outside expectations change. I a lot of times the thought is, well, it's going to change how warm this relationship is between the players and the guy. I think Marty is so sure of himself and so sure of the way that he's working with these guys. That's not going to change. And it's always going to be a working relationship where these guys all work together and figure this stuff out. Yeah. And that's I really enjoy that aspect of watching this team come together because you're watching Marty trust his players where like in the past, you talk about the individuality, right? And how it wasn't something you were like the coach banned the triple low five to the point where when Price and Subban were back on the ice in civilian clothing and they hit a triple low five, an entire generation of Canadiens fans sobbed. Like
that was a healing moment.
It was. They righted a wrong. And I think every day they're sort of righting that wrong by having this coach-player relationship not only just exist, but so public that we're all seeing it, right? Yeah. I think that's an important aspect of it as well.
And I do want to say, like, somebody was like, "Oh, who hates Marty?" When we talked about it, we do get a lot of comments where people
It's
think
a
that Marty's
lot.
not the right. Yeah, we get a lot. Marty's not the right coach for this team. Generally, they're so rude or like so disrespectful that like we can't approve those comments. But we also get them on our TikTok or we get them on Spotify. So if you guys are like trying to talk to us on Spotify, we don't get those notifications. We only get notifications if you hit us up on YouTube, on TikTok, on Instagram, or on Blue Sky. Anyways, just to say, like, we get a lot of that, and then like we'll be talking about something else, and then someone will be like, well, Marty's not going to be the coach when they make when they're winning Stanley Cups. How do you know
Disagree.
that?
Not only do we not know that, I know the inverse is true. I don't see this group working without him.
Yeah.
Like, I think it's so important that when you talk about the core of this team, Marty is in that core. He has developed as a coach just as well as all of the other players have developed as players.
Yeah.
He
He's
he
not
is
flawless.
No, he's not infallible. When
Yes.
he makes a mistake and he does something that we question, we talk about it. But
Yeah.
like, I genuinely don't think there's another guy I'd rather have in that spot.
No, not at all. Like we talk about the vibes being immaculate. I think there's a lot to be said about these guys being allowed to be themselves, but also at the same time having a common goal. Like they play for each other. Like we talk about it. They play for Marty. They play for each other. They play to win, and they understand that winning means that they all have to understand each other. Like they have to speak the same language in some respect, and they all have to have like a basic confidence in what they do. Anyways, so this was a Marty fest. I love Marty so much.
I needed to
Um
end the show this way, Laura. I
yes.
did.
Yeah.
I was so mad.
I
I'm
know.
not even going to say the ref's name again because I'm over it. I'm
We're just
already
going to
over
talk
it
about
because
Marty.
how much this dude rules.
Yes. All right, it is time for our daily trivia.
Yes.
Ian, what was the question from yesterday?
Let's get into it. So we're for the month of February, we're doing Black History Month themed trivia. So yesterday's question: this Montreal native was the first Black player to score 40 goals in an NHL season. Laura, do you have the answer?
Is it Tony McKegney for St.
It
Louis?
it is Tony McKegney. He did it with the St. Louis Blues in 1987-88. 912 NHL games, 639 points. This is a guy that I'm learning about for the first time.
Yeah.
So that's a really impressive NHL career. He played a lot of places. He played in Buffalo. He played some in Detroit. He played where he was needed. Lots of people have this one right. Our friend Manny, Valkyrie NS, the three-peat. I think this is 3 days in a row for Valkyrie. So keep that going. Paul P14, Super Rain, and Sandro Marchione all got that one correct. Thank you for playing. Really enjoyed that one.
Yes. So what is today's / tomorrow's question? I never know. Today's question, tomorrow's answer. How about that?
Yeah, there you go. Today's question is, who was the first Black player to play for the Montreal Canadiens? I'll give you a hint. He played one playoff game for the Montreal Canadiens. That's it. That was his only games with the Montreal Canadiens. He played elsewhere, but who was the first Black player to play for the Montreal Canadiens? If you have the answer, put it in the comments down below this video. Let us know any way you know how, and we'll give you a shout out on the next episode of the show.
And I want to thank you all for tuning in today to Locked On Canadiens. Tomorrow, we're probably going to talk about what Kent Hughes is going to be doing during this Olympic break and more. So make sure you're subscribed to and you follow Locked On Canadiens so that you get all the latest episodes. You can find us on social media. You can email us lockedoncanadiens@gmail.com. You can also leave comments in our YouTube. You can also find us on TikTok, Instagram, and Blue Sky, Locked On Canadiens, all of those places. And if you never miss an episode, the Everyday Club is built for you. Get Locked On Canadiens ad-free, plus members-only Discord access, and more. Head to lockedoncanadiens.supercast.com to learn more, or check out the link in the show notes. And for those of you who are on video, we're going to send you to the first ever 24/7 National Locked On Podcast Network YouTube channel. And on audio, make sure your second list of the day is NHL Game Night on Locked On NHL. They cover all the games, and then they have clips from hosts from all over the network, and sometimes you'll see our faces on there as well. We want to thank you all so much for listening, and we will see you all tomorrow.